Well, hi, everybody. Good evening to you all. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee here on the Joe Chaffee Weather Show on this Thursday night, the 23rd of May, 2018. I'm sorry, 2019. I do so many live streams sometimes and everything else that I'm doing during the day. I sometimes forget what day it is or the month. This is probably the first time I've actually forgotten the year. I just want to say off the bat, this is going to get played on my Facebook page later this evening. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, just be advised that live streams going forward, both this live stream and the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which airs at about 9:20 Eastern Time, will be on my YouTube channel, which is Joe Chaffee. So if you want to participate in that, you have to go to my YouTube channel. Again, it's Joe Chaffee. And subscribe with your Gmail account. And this way it'll give you access to the chat board and you can participate in that. Just wanted to let you know, we just had these ongoing issues with Facebook and I really just don't want to be bothered with it anymore. So we're going to just move we moved the Joe and Joe Weather Show over to Facebook. I'm sorry, from Facebook and over to YouTube. So be sure if you want to be part of the fun, to get to my YouTube channel and subscribe with your Gmail account. It's absolutely free. All right, let's get started because another one of these busy nights. We've had over 200 tornadoes in the United States in the last 7 days. Only one so far today, but we still have the rest of this evening and tonight to get through. And the activity is going to be especially busy, guess where? The Southern Plains. Now, we did have some strong to severe thunderstorms that moved through the parts of the Northeast and especially down in the Mid-Atlantic area, around Maryland, around the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. There was a brief tornado warning that went up for Baltimore a couple of hours ago, and there were numerous severe thunderstorm warnings. The strongest part of this lead line that developed wound up being on the southern end of it. Even though there was still some shower and thunderstorm activity with a good amount of lightning strikes on the northern part of that line, which moved through Philadelphia and New York City, it was really the southern end of it that caught fire. And for those of you who were on the Patreon live stream this morning, if you remember, we talked about the fact that there was a problem. The short-term weather models were awful today with this to a large degree. Not even showing the lead line that moved across Pennsylvania during this morning and this afternoon. Even up until a couple of hours before, the HRRR model, for example, had absolutely nothing while we're staring at a radar that was loaded with showers and storms moving across the great state of Pennsylvania. So clearly, and this is not the first time it's happened. This is one of the things when you get these risk areas that SPC puts out, the models don't always catch what's really going on, those mesoscale models. Sometimes they do, but they seem to really have trouble with this today, and they were not really all that useful with regards to coming out with a straight forecast. And we're kind of left with this dilemma this evening because we still have the cold front yet to pass, and we're waiting to see whether there will be some showers and thunderstorms that pop up ahead of it. And I tend to think they'll probably be more scattered in nature. So I want to start off with, we're going to start talking about all the severe stuff that's going on. And we'll start with SPC. And there's their the risk map. Now they're adjusting on the fly with regards to the risk area in the east. We had an enhanced area of risk that SPC actually moved around a few times today. They are still leaving a slight risk for severe up for New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Hudson Valley. We have what's left of a severe thunderstorm watch in southeast Virginia and over the Delmarva Peninsula. We also have a new severe thunderstorm watch that's up for northeastern Kentucky into West Virginia and southwestern Pennsylvania. Those are showers and storms that are with the front that is going to be moving through. Right now, as of 6:04 Eastern Time, there is nothing that's showing up to the west of New York City and Philadelphia. And it's quite possible that this first line of storms might have just zapped everything out of the atmosphere, and I don't know how much there's going to be for this cold front to work on. The temperatures where there was some daytime heating, of course, those thunderstorms cooled a lot of places down into the 60s, and now we're 2 hours from sunset. There's not a whole lot of recovery time for those temperatures. Some of them have bounced back up into the upper 60s to some lower 70s, but it's not as if they're going to be jumping up into the 80s before that next front goes by. Meanwhile, once again, and I think when the folks in the Southern Plains, when this pattern changes, they're going to be dancing in the streets because it's been going on like this for the last couple of weeks. But we've got, again, another, what could be another busy night with two working tornado watches up for northwest Texas, on up into western Oklahoma and into parts of southern Nebraska. That's encased inside an area of enhanced risk and a small area of moderate risk being indicated in parts of northwest Texas and into Oklahoma. The marginal risk goes up further north up into northern Nebraska. I should have said, my mistake. The tornado watch and that enhanced risk go into Kansas. Nebraska is the one on top of it. And of course, now seeing a new severe thunderstorm, we also have a severe thunderstorm watch that is up for northwestern Kansas. So this is also a good time to remind everybody that if you're watching this on a replay later on tonight, clearly everything you're seeing here is dated. It's 6:06 Eastern Time on May 23rd. And we advise that you go to your local National Weather Service office page to get the latest weather information regarding severe weather, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. All right, let's get front and center here. Let's take a look at what's happening with regards to all this activity this evening. All right, so we're going to start with the radar. And here's the full U.S. view. Let's go to the northeast first. And there's your line of storms moving off of Long Island. Actually, the cells stayed fairly strong in spite of the fact that there was a bit of a marine layer. It wasn't a dense marine layer by any means, so I think that probably helped. And there you can also see the part of the line in the southern flank that's moving now through Chesapeake Bay and down into southern Delaware with some strong cells there. But notice out to the west, at least for now, not seeing much going on back through Pennsylvania. And again, waiting for this possibility that we could see a couple of storms firing up again before the cold front comes through. You're seeing storms firing up in southeast Ohio and northeast Kentucky, so that's with that new severe thunderstorm watch that has gone up. And as we head out into the plains, here we go, busy, kind of a narrow band here, but we are getting some heavy thunderstorms that are developing over parts of northwest Texas and into western Oklahoma and on into parts of western Kansas, and those are moving northeastward. Still getting west, the trough in the west, still causing problems. The southern part of that trough that was left behind, we're seeing showers of rain and snow through the central Rockies, some rain showers back to parts of California, and you see the rotation there, the counterclockwise rotation, so that's the upper low in play, and that's driving the severe weather that's going to be happening out in the plain states today. Here's SPC's view of the east. So we've got the current radar on the current surface map. If you look at where the isobars are, where they kind of come to a bit of a V shape, a very broad V shape is evident in eastern Pennsylvania and in through central New York State. So there's some kind of trough here. That's what set off the the lead line of storms. And then we have the actual cold front, and that's where the isobars bend back through northwest Ohio and on up through Michigan. If you look where the wind barbs are, they're mostly westerly. It's not the strongest front in the world, but it's enough. It marks the the dry stable air pushing southeastward out from the Great Lakes, as opposed to the west-southwest winds and the warmer, more humid air that is sitting over West Virginia and Kentucky. Remember, these areas down here in Virginia and Maryland, into Delaware, got some pretty solid daytime heating today with temperatures that climbed well up into the 80s. It was less the case as you went further to the north. We're seeing now, of course, the reflection of those thunderstorms cooling the atmosphere down. So again, I'm not 100% certain as to what we're going to see with regards to the development here in the east in the next couple of hours. If something doesn't pop up on the radar soon, we may very well be done. We'll see. I'm tending to lean to the idea that this first line of thunderstorms might have just about cooked the atmosphere, and that there's not much left. I could be proven wrong, but that's where I'm going with this. So here's your severe thunderstorm watch. This is effective until 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it continues to get, obviously, the northern, the watch is done for much of this area now. It's confined to where the thunderstorms are on the radar. Here is, I was actually watch 218. Here's 219. So they looks like that's when they extended the watch for parts of the Tidewater and down into the lower part of the Delmarva Peninsula. Severe thunderstorm watch 222 is what's up in West Virginia and through southeastern Ohio, southwestern PA, and northeastern Kentucky. That is in effect until 11 o'clock Central Time, midnight Eastern Time. Out in the west, we've got in the plains, we've got those we've got a working tornado watch, that's Tornado Watch 221, which is valid until 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time, and Severe Thunderstorm Watch 220, which is valid until also 10 p.m. Central Time. Here, the inflow coming in, you're getting once again another surge of moisture and tropical air that's pushed up through Texas. You got all these dew points running into the 70s and temperatures well up into the 80s. The atmosphere pretty juiced up, and with that upper trough, that very cold, deep upper trough that's in the southwest sort of swinging around, the outcome is another very, very busy day in the plain states. As I said, they'll be dancing in the streets when this is all over with. By the way, if you want to get the tornado count, if you go to SPC's homepage, spc.noaa.gov, so you can actually see the current overview. Plus, you get these mesoscale discussions that and the watches as they're issued on this side menu that updates automatically. But they have a spot here where you can pull up the storm report trend for the given day. So this is the trend so far today as of 6:12 Eastern Time. 25 reports of hail, 54 reports of wind meeting severe thunderstorm criteria, and one tornado so far. And you follow the link to the top, will take you to the previous day. So this was yesterday's. These were yesterday's totals, where we had 36 tornadoes, 44 reports of hail, and 225 reports of damaging winds. And I just kind of went back over the last 7 or 8 days and came out. I think the number I counted was 207 in terms of tornadoes. In terms of outbreaks, I know that sounds like a big number, but it really isn't. We've had outbreaks with numbers like that for just one day. Thankfully, they don't happen very often. Nonetheless, this still has been a very, very busy period with regards to severe weather. Now, as far as the risk is concerned going forward, this is for Friday, and slight risk again, west and northwest Texas, across Oklahoma, Kansas, northern Missouri into Iowa and Illinois, a slight risk of severe thunderstorms indicated. We've been getting into this habit where when we get to the actual day, we wind up seeing at least an enhanced risk showing up in some places. That would not at all surprise me if it happens tomorrow. Now, Saturday, which was originally we saw this on the day 5 and day 6, so now we've worked into Saturday. Slight risk of severe weather Saturday into Sunday morning. In northern Ohio, northwest PA, southwest New York, marginal risk going into east central PA, and the slight risk extends back into northeastern Indiana. Then there's a bit of a break, and they have a separate area of slight risk from northwest Texas on up through much of the state of Kansas, western Oklahoma, southeastern Nebraska, northwestern Missouri, and on up into southern Iowa. And on the 4 to 8 time frame, it'll swing to day 4 here. So there's your day 4. That's Monday. There's Tuesday and Wednesday. So they actually have risk areas being indicated for days 4, 5, and 6. So they may wind up being a bit more robust by the time they get there. So I want to show you here. I pulled this off my app from earlier today when the radar was starting to get busy, and it might not be clear to see, but trust me when I tell you, where you see these storms, that's in central Pennsylvania. This was at about 12:30 Eastern time, and I'm showing you this because I want to show you what the models were doing. So look how extensive the line was, cutting across western New York, cutting through the state of Pennsylvania in half, almost right in the middle, and then extending down into West Virginia. Now take a look. I'm going to go back to the HRRR model from. We'll use 11 o'clock this morning, okay, and. Wait, just a second. There's a problem here. Okay, now I understand. I'm misreading the time. All right, so this is from 11 o'clock this morning. This first map was from noon today. Look at what this model was showing in terms of thunderstorms. This was reality, and this was what the model was showing. It wasn't even picking up on this line that moved on through. This was at 5 o'clock this afternoon when we had solid thunderstorms running from northeastern Virginia northeastward into southern New England. Nothing. You see the secondary line that the model developed into from central New York State down into northeastern Pennsylvania, moving this through at about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and actually firing up some fairly strong cells when it moves over Long Island. This was from earlier today. So you can see what I'm saying with regards to the fact that these models, certainly the HRRR and all of the other ones did the same thing. I could go through the NAM3 had next to nothing with respect to these storms. So I didn't even look at the new NAM3 from late this afternoon. I mean, look at this. This was the NAM that came out at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Okay, this is the 5 o'clock, what it expected the radar to look like. Just completely off. You can see the secondary line there moving southeastward, and it fires that up to some degree by about 10 o'clock tonight, moving it off the south shore of Long Island and through New Jersey. But I wonder, again, the fact that we had these first thunderstorms go by, I just wonder whether there's going to be much for this to work on as you finally get the cold front to move on through. The mesoscale models, big fail as far as how they perform today. And thankfully, this is why you got to remember that the radar is reality. If the radar is showing you, as a forecaster, if the radar is showing you precip and the model is not, okay, it's not the radar that is wrong, it's the model that is wrong, clearly. And you have to adjust your forecasts accordingly. Otherwise, you could wind up with a forecast disaster. You would have forecasted hardly any thunderstorm activity based on on what the models were doing with respect to this morning. All right. I'm going to move on to the GFS. We're going to take care of the weather going forward. We have a holiday weekend ahead, and nothing in my view, nothing has changed with regards to my particular outlook for the next 4 days. Much of the time from Friday through Monday will be dry. There will be 2 periods where I think you'll see some interruption. Saturday night overnight, where there might be a shower or thunderstorm. I think there's a chance that there could be an isolated shower or storm during the day on Sunday, but for most folks, it will be dry. And I'm talking about areas from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Sunday night, with another front, there could be a shower or thunderstorm. And I think Monday, Memorial Day, will be dry. Sunday, I think, will be the warmest of the days. It'll be in the 80s in most places. Saturday, there'll be issues with the wind along the coast. The wind coming in off the water might keep coastal areas in the 60s. Inland areas will be in the 70s. And Monday will be a compromise of the two, with temperatures in the mid-70s to low 80s. Meanwhile, take a look out in the Rockies, and of course, with this deep trough in the west, you've got another round of rain and snows going on in Colorado into this evening. That gradually diminishes and disappears. Low pressure runs up into the northern plains. And now, of course, you've got the firing up of severe weather potential for Friday. Dry in the east, and with a low that's going to be getting a bit wrapped up there up in Maine. We've got a pretty tight pressure gradient here tomorrow morning. So it could be on the breezy side tomorrow, at least into the afternoon before the gradient relaxes tomorrow night. Should be a nice sunny day. On to Saturday, which I think the daytime is fine. Sunshine much of the day, maybe some high clouds in the afternoon. And here's your front for Saturday night. That front weakens and just kind of lingers over the area on Sunday. But there's going to be some sun through the clouds and more of a west wind. So that's why I think Sunday's temperatures are going to warm up. There's no real cool push behind this first front. And the second one is actually forming overhead for Sunday night, and this could bring through some showers or storms. Meanwhile, you take a look. Remember, we got the severe weather risks running out in the western areas up through the weekend and into next week. So we've got another low that develops late Sunday night in northeastern Colorado, with another round of severe weather in the plains and precipitation getting thrown back over into California. And here's Monday, Memorial Day, dry in the east, a nice Memorial Day for sure, before we move into what I think is going to be some very warm to hot air coming in for Tuesday and Wednesday. A lot's going to depend on clouds, but I think with the ridge the way it is and a west-southwest flow, perhaps not as much on Tuesday, but Wednesday and Thursday could turn out to be 2 rather warm days until you finally get a good solid push from a cold front to come through and put an end to it toward the latter part of next week. So let's look at what the upper air is telling us. And at least with respect to Memorial Day, the weather's going to turn out okay. The Memorial Day weekend can sometimes be disasters with onshore flow. At least we're not dealing with that. All right, so of course, as we look back earlier this week, the deep trough in the west, the rotation of the 2 upper lows, the plains storm, ridge building in the eastern states, and of course now you've got this cold front that's through. Ridge stays in the east, trough in the west going into the weekend. Another wrapped up upper low drops down through California going into early next week. Flattish ridge in the east at this point. You're starting to get the northern part of the jet getting involved a bit. The models are taking something out from that southwestern trough, phasing it with an arm coming down from the north in the middle part of next week, and then it rotates it up and around. But there is an important change going on in the west. For those of you that are watching from the areas that have been hit hard by severe weather, there's a little leftover energy later next week in the southwest, but the deep trough in the west is going to pull out for a while. And you got this wrapped up upper low right in the middle in Canada, right in central Canada. So at least it gets rid of the trough for a short period of time. Going into next weekend, you got some troughing coming back in the west for the first part of June. and a big ridge of high pressure on the models from the old run building in the east. It'll be very interesting to see if this is going to indeed be the case. I think a lot is going to depend on the whether there's any kind of blocking pressure coming up, being provided across Greenland and in the Arctic, perhaps pinning down the northern jet a bit more than the model indicates. The GFS keeps breaking it down, and if it's successful, then you're going to wind up pushing this upper high pretty far to the north. As we this is June 8th. This is sheer long-term speculation. But it does, on the old run, after a brief break, it does want to bring that troughing back into the western part of the United States. And if this upper high were to translate into reality, we could have some pretty hot weather during that period as we go, say, from June 5th and 6th, 7th, and 8th. Not forecasting this. I'm just observing of what the model is telling us. But a lot is going to be dependent on whether we're going to lose this negative NAO, which the North Atlantic Oscillation, this blocky look that has been there for a while across Greenland and up in the Arctic regions. The difference here is that you are, at least, you got this northern jet getting involved, but it's pulled up more into Canada than it actually is dropping down into the east. It allows weather systems to keep on moving. You don't get highs that build at the surface in eastern Canada. You don't get the onshore flow issues that we saw back a few weeks ago. I want to check, before we come back to the board, I want to check. This is now 6:30, coming up on 6:30 Eastern time. Let's take a look. If we're waiting to see whether these, we're going to start to see some showers fire up again. And you can see this little batch on the Upton radar that's on up and through northwestern Massachusetts. Let's go down to the Philly radar. We're not seeing much of anything in eastern Pennsylvania or on up into the Catskills. Maybe we can jump up to Binghamton and see what's going on there. Now, you had these showers and storms, and some storms moving across upstate New York. Remember, this was a slight risk area. It's still in that slight risk zone. And you're seeing a couple of strong cells north and west of Utica moving eastward. And we'll jump down. Let's go down into Pennsylvania, further south in the Binghamton radar. Looks like a little spot shower there is developed on the northwest. I don't know what county that is in Pennsylvania. Well, west-northwest of Williamsport. But I don't, right now, as of this moment, not seeing any signs of that secondary line firing up. So if it doesn't happen, we're done, and we'll just wait for skies to clear out tonight and start preparing for what should be a pretty good holiday weekend. All right, on to the chat board tonight. Izzy D, you got your regular downpours as opposed to the irregular ones. The storms actually held up fairly well, considering that the amount of heating that we got today was relatively limited across New Jersey and in through southern New England. Erica Baker, you've been sending me reports on Facebook regarding the flooding, the excessive rains. I just want to bring up WPC's rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. If you think back days ago when I showed this, I mean, it's been, they've basically been forecasting 5 inches or more of rain for 7 days every day for the last week or more, and it just continues to pile up. I mean, this is the 7-day rainfall forecast totals so it just goes on. We're talking about some areas in parts of Kansas getting another 5 inches or more, and even down into western Oklahoma and northwestern Texas, extending on up into parts of Iowa. Every bit of 3, 4, 5 inches of rain being forecast. So the plains and parts of the upper Midwest are going to continue to get hit very hard. Dry in the southeast, that reflects the ridge in the east. Dry through much of Florida. Not a whole lot in the northeast, basically 1/4 to 1/2 inch amount, so you got to figure that that's convective. And still pretty busy out in the Rockies, out to the west coast, where you're seeing some 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 inches amounts and some isolated amounts over 2 inches over the next 7 days. Remember, this is the time of year where that part of the country is getting ready for the long dry season. Not yet. They still got work to do with respect to that. Izzy D, I know it's a stupid model, but do you think it has the right idea in the long range with a strong ridge, which would mean 90s and humid? I don't know if it is. We've seen the GFS numerous times trying to break the North Atlantic Oscillation, trying to break down that blockiness that we've seen in the North Atlantic and on up into the Arctic regions for a while. And I don't know if that's the case. And you still, the model's gonna have to be correct that after this initial brief break that's going to occur, that you're going to wind up seeing the trough. Does the trough come back into the west or not? I want to see some confirmation with model runs going forward. It's hard, you don't want to take one run at face value. So for now, I would just stress that it's one of many solutions. There's too much. There's still way too much going on in the atmosphere to really kind of fall into line over the idea that we're going to go into a solid ridge in the east, the way the GFS showed in its last model cycle run. The new GFS wasn't out far enough. One of the other things is when just like in the wintertime, when short range it gets pretty busy, I don't spend a whole lot of time looking at what the long range is driving at. So I kind of would have to give it a bit more analysis. I didn't even look at the European today because I was so busy watching the radars with the thunderstorms. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the European, for example, I can bring this up. All right, so here's the Europeans' view with over the next 10 days, and the models are pretty even. There's no differences with regards to the weekend. But look, the European does bring this upper low down from Canada. You see it here, and it shoots out that trough out of the southwest along about Tuesday, Wednesday, and it really wraps that upper low up pretty solidly up into the northern lakes. That's a wintertime vortex of very cold air coming down, the way the European kind of looks here. That is a very strong upper low for this time of year, showing over Lake Superior, which it lifts up into Labrador fairly quickly. Does swing a trough through the east late next week. So this would, to me, imply that we would probably have a shot of cool, dry air coming in for next weekend, that first weekend of June. Now, what happens after this, I don't know. I mean, we only got to 240, but if you look at it, you still have higher than normal pressures up in the North Atlantic across Greenland in that particular area, and you still have this upper low sitting in Hudson Bay. To me, this implies that we've got a jet still coming out of Canada. So you're going to have that. The European is probably not as suggestive as the GFS. I mean, it matches up fairly. This is the new one. I got to go back. I got to do it backwards just so we get an apples to apples here. So here's the old. This would be the old 240. So here the GFS is in the process of breaking down the higher than normal pressures in the North Atlantic at 240 hours. The European in this time frame is not quite there. It's got much higher pressures up in the North Atlantic and over Greenland. It's got a stronger vortex in Hudson Bay. So I would say that if you were to carry the European out beyond 240 hours, you would probably not establish the same, you would probably not get the same solution that the GFS has given us today. But you know what? We'll see when we're here at this time tomorrow. We'll see how, if there are any similarities or any differences with respect to going forward. Shelly Man Studios, thank you so much. And thanks, Izzy. I really appreciate it. Both of you for hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you. just wanted to make sure I got everybody's. So we got the Euro up there. Chuck Cardillo, you jumped on late. Nice to see you. Keith James, welcome from Paramus. Not too far from where I am. Mirtha Gunter, hot weather down in the southeast for the next few days and for the weekend. So it looks like you've got a nice stretch of dry weather setting up there with this ridge in the eastern part of the United States. We don't want it to stay too long before we start getting into dry to drought conditions. It's got a long way to go as far as a drought. I don't think anywhere in the United States is abnormally dry at this particular juncture. It's kind of unusual. You usually have some place where they're having problems. William Huber got 9 holes, thinking about playing another 9, looking at the radar, looked bad, call it a day. He did, that was a wise thing. But could play another 9, a quick shower now that you're home. Awesome. Totally agree with you. Chuck Barefoot Jr. from Pittsburgh. Greetings to you too. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. Chris Alley, nice to see you again, back-to-back days. That's good. Was a little worried about you because I hadn't seen you in a couple of days. But it's nice to see you on here. Johnny Quest, I don't know about those storms in West Virginia, if they're going to survive the mountain trip. But you're at least not getting clobbered by continuous rain like you saw for so long going through the late summer, fall, and through the winter months. Yes, I did not, Chuck, I did not see, I did hear, because it was on in the background, one of the news shows was on in the background, they talked about it. The Hurricane Center did put out their forecast for hurricane season, and they're basically forecasting an average year, which I suppose kind of makes sense if you think about it. There's a weak El Nino. It's not an overpowering El Nino. Some question as to whether it'll still be around as we go through the summer or not. If it starts to really wane, then that might kick up the activity going forward, but we'll see. But I think an average year to me sounds like a fairly that sounds like a fair forecast at this point. Does the 7-day rain total include what fell this afternoon? That from SPC, Izzy, that forecast actually starts at 8 o'clock tonight. If we're talking about that SPC, the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, the WPC forecast map actually starts from 8 o'clock tonight and goes until 8 o'clock next Thursday. So it does not include what fell during the day today. Sunset at Boston for Delvin at 8:06 p.m. Johnny, I did not come across. I started looking around this morning, and then I got distracted. I got to ask my colleagues. My younger colleagues know where all this stuff is. In fact, my colleague Addison Green has a program on his iPad where you could pull up the radars and actually see the wind velocity. It's a subscription radar site that is, I think he pays $10 a month for it. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm going to make a mental note to ask him with regards to that. I don't know that there's anything on the internet that's where you could, see that for free. You know what? I'm just going to really fast, because I'm going to have to wrap it up soon, but I'm just really fast. SPC's got so much stuff here on their website. I just wonder... I'm just doing a quick look here. I'm not seeing anything off their site. Their forecast tools, I mean, they've got that, but in terms of radars that you can actually see the wind velocities of the storms, I don't see anything here. Let me ask around some more, but I'm going to ask my colleague Addison Green, because like I said, the young weather geeks, they're on top of all the latest developments, and they have all these great apps and programs and all the rest of it. And us old guys tend to stumble onto this stuff, much later on, usually after some cajoling by the youngins to get with the program. Okie AG, nice to see you on board. You guys have been getting clobbered with respect to up to the rain. Where'd you go? I just there you go. It'll be a couple of weeks before I can get into some of the hay fields here. Too wet, but the hillsides are already about a month early. Yeah, it is really astounding just how unrelenting. You get these patterns sometimes, and they just lock in the way they do. And this particular one is so out of character for the season. When you're talking about breaking records in some places in Colorado, for example, some cold weather records that go back to the 1880s, you know that it's a fairly rare event to see a trough this deep in the West this time of year. Thankfully, these are not every other year events or every 10 years or even 20 years. Thankfully, they are generational events. I saw Alfred Phillips up from Alaska. Nice to see you tonight. You think Noah has the Velocity Gypsy 2112? If anybody finds it, send me the link. And find something like that. Send me the link, and I'll keep digging around. Happy birthday to Phil P. I don't know how much thunderstorm activity you got to see, Phil, but I know you were looking for it. Hopefully, you got your wish. Thankfully, at least across Pennsylvania and in through southern New England and New York City, northern New Jersey, they were typical thunderstorms, and none of them wound up being severe. Not the case down in Baltimore and down in the Washington, D.C. area. And, of course, we know with everything that's going on in the Southern Plains, another very busy night ahead. A reminder, again, is they're going to wrap it up here at this point, folks. A reminder, if you're watching this you're on the replay, it's all dated stuff. It's 6:40 Eastern time, so you got to make sure you go to your local National Weather Service forecast office for the latest information with respect to severe weather by going to weather.gov, or you can go to the SPC's website, the Storm Prediction Center, at spc.noaa.gov. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, right here on YouTube at roughly 9:20 Eastern time. Sometimes we might start a little early. Sometimes we may start a few minutes after that, but the average time will be about 9:20. Both of us have some stuff to do, so it's just a matter of when we both have that wrapped up. So right here on YouTube at 9:20, and I'll put something up on the YouTube live stream page, so you'll get a notification of the Joe and Joe Weather Show and a subtle reminder. And if you're watching this video from Facebook, again, we've moved the Joe and Joe Weather Show off the Facebook platform and moved it to YouTube, where I think it's going to wind up staying. So you can watch it on a replay when it comes on Facebook. The reason why I'm doing that is because of the fact that I've had this technical issue with respect to Facebook. I can't go live on my weather page for some reason, even though I can go live on 6 other pages that I'm involved with. And I've been emailing their support. They don't respond. I can't be bothered anymore. I've wasted enough of my time. So the whole show comes off and it goes here on YouTube. Frankly, I got a great audience here. You guys are here every day, night after night. And I really, really appreciate that very, very much. Thanks very much also, once again, to Shelly Man Studios and to Izzy for hitting the till on Super Chat. Always appreciated, and gets me a little cigar money, and I'm happy for it. All right, tomorrow's Friday getaway day. I'm thinking we'll just be on normal schedule tomorrow. So look for the regular YouTube live stream at 6 o'clock Eastern, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 9:20. And if I feel motivated, we'll do I'll probably do a short Patreon live stream for Patreon members only at 10 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow morning. That seems to work quite well for Patreon members. That's my let's call it my weather intensive weather platform. A lot of the Patreon folks are on the YouTube live stream tonight in the chat board, but if you're not and you're interested, there's the link to it. I just put it up in the chat, and there's also a link on the descriptor to this live stream, or the descriptor to this video, and it's just $2 a month. Gives you I think, a fair amount of weather coverage just about every day. Anthony, Facebook didn't ban me. That's just it. I didn't do anything. There's a technical glitch on my page. It started back on May 2nd. And I can't, live streams, when I try to set them up, I get an error. I can do a live stream on my personal page, but this is with respect to my weather page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And I cannot get it addressed. I actually have a hook that I can use at sending messages to support, which a lot of most people don't have. And they're not even responding. So I don't know if this is a system-wide problem. I've talked to a number of my colleagues. No one seems to have this except for me. So I've gone through this before with them. It just one day will magically reappear. But we stopped doing the Joe and Joe Weather Show for almost 3 weeks, waiting for this to be repaired. And I'm just not going to wait anymore. And I think, we're on YouTube. And you guys have been so supportive all the way along. Instead of me doing the show on Facebook and then just putting the replay on YouTube, we're gonna live stream it here on YouTube and then pull it back on Facebook as a downloaded video, and that works out quite well. All right, folks, have a great night. Be safe for those of you who are dealing with severe weather, and hopefully we'll see you later, 9:20, right here on YouTube for the Joe and Joe Weather Show.